Welcome to Saturday's Warrior. Today we are going to do a dive into BYU's matchup this week against West Virginia, and joining us is the one and only Couz from Couz's Corner. Couz, thank you for coming on here today. Really excited to have you.
Absolutely, Trevor. I appreciate the invite, man. It's going to be fun to talk BYU-West Virginia for a few minutes.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it, and I really gotta say, like, I watch your stuff and I love it, and it's inspired me in many ways. So I'm really excited to have you on and talking ball with you. But please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and as we continue to go throughout the season, I'll try and do more of these videos and bring on someone from BYU's opponents to come on and talk about the matchup each week. And so Couz, West Virginia was slated to come in at the bottom of the Big 12, and they have shown that they are a tough out, that this is a gritty team that is going to fight and compete and has done really well. So what was it that people got wrong, and what changed throughout the season that allowed West Virginia to find the success?
Well, I think a couple things they got wrong. I think people just assumed because Neal Brown was on the hot seat that his team was just going to give up and fold, and not want to play hard for their coach, which is absolutely not true, and it's not been true since he's been here, really. His players have always, for the most. I mean, do they have games where it doesn't seem like they bring the same amount of energy? Yes, but as far as overall, his players typically play hard for him, and another, I think, there was some anonymous people who said that the roster wasn't good and we had a MAC roster and all this other stuff. And that just, I mean, it's just simply not true. I mean, we may not be the biggest team out there, we may not be the most athletic team out there, but we have good football players on this team and several guys who will likely play on Sundays. So I don't know, for whatever reason, there was just a false narrative, I think, around, and I think it all stemmed from Neal Brown and him, being on the hot seat coming into the season. I think kind of, and the fact that he didn't have a lot of success, the last 4 years, people just didn't, people were just like, you know what, I have no confidence in this guy, so I'm picking them to finish last. I think that was just kind of the thought behind it, based on what I'm gathering from people anyway.
Yeah, and did you guys lose some depth? Was that my understanding? And some defense as
we lost several guys to the portal, we lost our best, arguably our best player on the team, and Dante Steele, who was a defensive lineman. He went to the NFL, and he was the anchor to our defense. Our defense was really bad last year. So people were, I think people's minds, they were like, look, they lost the one really good player they had on a bad defense. How can they be better, right? But what they didn't take into consideration is the experience a lot of the other guys got last year by being thrown into the games when they probably weren't ready. Some transfers that it took a year to get, to really get comfortable in the system. And then he did a good job on a couple transfers that, have come in and performed probably better than what people expected. Beanie Bishop is one of those, the cornerback. He's one of the top as far as statistically, one of the top cornerbacks in the Big 12, if not the top cornerback in the Big 12 as far as passes defended and pass breakups. But yeah, I mean, he's just, he's hit on a couple guys and then had some guys that have developed in year 2 in the program as well, and some veteran guys as well, like Sean Martin, who's been in the program. I think he's on his 4th year now. Took him a couple years to develop and become the player he is now. So, it's just, it's taken some time, and people, I think, just didn't really understand that there were talented guys on this team. They just hadn't put it all together yet.
Yeah, and I love that they have come together, and that it seems like they've really rallied together. That they heard the narrative, and that they decided to come together and as a team and compete, and have really kind of shut up the critics so far. And even their losses really aren't bad losses. I mean, obviously,
Well, one of them was.
Well, okay, but it was.
But yeah, your point's taken.
It was on a final play, and I
Yeah.
think Houston has had a lot of ups and downs, but they've definitely shown flashes throughout the season.
Yeah.
So it's one of those teams that you knew at one point in the season they were probably going to get at least close to kind of upsetting somebody they weren't supposed to. But yeah, so I guess first of all, we should probably talk about the elephant in the room. So we got someone who's near and dear to the West Virginia fans' heart coming back in Keaton Slovis. So what kind of greeting can he expect this weekend?
I would say a lot of F-bombs thrown his way and a lot of booze thrown his way would be my guess. He's definitely one of the least liked players in the country, at least in Morgantown.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, we played against him when he was at USC, and anyway, so we know the feeling, but he's come in and made himself
Right,
right at home with BYU. But
right.
what's that?
Yeah, I was saying, yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So no, I like that little wrinkle that he was, that adds another layer, another dimension to this game, because the two teams we've only played once before. I was actually at that game at FedEx,
Mhm.
and it was a good one. It was disappointing for us, but it was good. And I remember, um, the loss, and like, oh, we got to walk out of here, and we got all the West Virginia fans, like, what's this going to be like? And no, everyone was really nice, and there was
Good.
no beer thrown at us, and no F-bombs that I encountered. So
Good.
um it was a good matchup and fun game to be at. So but talk about Keaton Slovis. So and we've talked a little about the defense, so kind of let's stay there. So what
And hey, real quick,
oh, sure.
do your listeners understand why we hate Keaton Slovis so much? We might ought to.
um, I should think so, but why don't you
Okay.
enlighten us just in case they
Well,
don't?
last year he played for Pitt, obviously, who was our biggest rival. And before the backyard brawl game, they had and I'm keeping this clean, by the way. They had at the backyard brawl before the backyard brawl game, Pitt had kind of a pep rally type deal, and Keaton Slovis got up on a stage, pedestal, whatever you want to call it, and basically yelled "F West Virginia," and it got caught on camera and has been plastered all over X now. Before that game, and then all of a sudden, it's that clip has started to resurface among West Virginia fans, and the players obviously know about it. So, I'm sure they're not happy about it either, and I'm sure they'll probably use that as motivation come Saturday.
Oh,
But
I'm sure. I'm sure.
I just want to make sure they understood the background behind why we don't like Keaton Slovis.
Yeah. So yeah, if you haven't, it's out there. You can, I'm sure, easily look it up and find that. But yeah, so that I do actually remember that from last year. But in all fairness, that stuff gets thrown around by everybody on both sides of every major
Mhm.
rivalry. His just happened to be caught on camera, and like you
Right.
said, kind of used as fodder for West Virginia. So yeah, so we had West Virginia's defense, which has been pretty good, really good, and BYU's offense, which has not done well, which starts with Keaton Slovis. So, what's really the strength of West Virginia's defense, and how does it match up with BYU?
Yeah, it's our defense has not played as good the last 3 weeks as they had earlier in the season, but a lot of that is due to we've been decimated with injuries. In the two deep. I mean, we've got third and fourth string guys having to play, fill in and play snaps that probably wouldn't have played otherwise. So that's hurt us. But the strength of our defense really has been our front seven, uh, especially our defensive line. We have 10 or 11 guys. We go 10 or 11 guys deep on that defensive line, and they rotate those guys in the entire game. And you don't see much of a drop off, from number 1 to number 11. And that's what's pretty remarkable about it. Is they can bring any of those guys in and feel comfortable with them. And then our linebacking core has been good, especially Lee Coba, number 1. Um, he's just a beast. He's our leading tackler. I haven't looked at the Big 12 standings, but I'm sure he's probably up there in the top half of the Big 12 in tackles. He's also really good at rushing the passer. Our secondary has had some struggles. I did mention Beanie Bishop earlier. He's had a good year, but our safeties have really struggled at times. And that's probably the biggest weakness on our defense. But I'd say our strength, to answer your question, is our defensive front.
Yeah. Well, and BYU, as it's no secret, struggles with the run. We have some some very good receivers that can go
Yes.
out there and
Mhm.
get it. But if one or two outstanding catches a game is not going to necessarily win the game for BYU. So that's interesting that you're struggling in the secondary. I wonder if BYU receivers can find a little more consistency, because our O line has struggled, but they've done pretty well at there's a lot of plays where Keaton has all day in the pocket to pass. It's just that the
Mhm.
receivers haven't been able to get open. So it'll be interesting to see
Mhm.
if that changes, and if Keaton's able to find his guys and get some accurate passes out there, because we've made
Interesting.
some fantastic one-handed grabs, it seems like, almost once a week. But the fact that we have to we're getting to the point where we have to make those outstanding grabs just to make a big play is what's disconcerting.
Right. Well, and with West Virginia too, if you'll go back and watch, for anybody who's watched, when we're able to get pressure on the quarterback, which, and maybe this is cliche, but when we're able to get pressure on the quarterback, our defense is really good. When we're not, it doesn't go well typically, because our secondary just cannot cover guys for a long period of time. So we rely on that defensive front to get pressure, and when I say front, I'm talking about the front seven basically,
Mhm.
to get pressure and try to disrupt the passing game so that our DBs don't have to cover for very long. That's kind of been our bread and butter. The games we haven't been able to do that. That's one of the reasons Houston done so well against us. Donovan Smith got rid of the ball really quickly, and they were hitting really quick routes on us. It didn't give us time to get pressure. So if Keaton Slovis will not hold on to the ball and get rid of it quickly, which like you said, if your receivers, that's going to a lot depend on whether or not your receivers can get open. That's going to be a huge key in this game, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, if so, I mean, from our side, that would be fantastic if we get some consistency somewhere. Because at this point, I just don't have a lot of faith that our running game is going to pick up. It's shown a little bit of signs of improvement, but our competition has continued to get tougher, and so I don't know if we're ever gonna really figure it out. But if we can get it going just enough.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, so West Virginia's offense has also been better than was advertised, or at least believed, prior to the
Mm-hmm.
city, as we've already referenced. So,
Mm-hmm.
prior to the season. So, what's been the driving force behind that for you guys?
Garrett Green. Garrett Green is a dog, man. He was picked as a writer for 24/7 Sports picked him to be the worst Power 5 quarterback in the country this year. And I'm just like, man, there's no way. I mean, the guy went out last year and beat Oklahoma, uh, coming in relief of JT Daniels. He went out and played well against Kansas State in a loss. Was playing well against Oklahoma State in a win against them before he got hurt. And I just don't think people understood, and it might be another reason people question our ability to win is because he was kind of an unproven starting quarterback, right? He had only played in relief of JT Daniels and started a couple games. So people, and he was more of a runner. People didn't know if he could throw the football. Well, guess what? Garrett Green can throw the football. Now he's not going to complete 70% of his passes. He's right around that 55% range. But man, he's got a really good arm, and he's really accurate with the deep ball, and he runs the ball so well that it opens up a lot of things in the pass game for him. We've had some issues too with receivers getting open this year, but they seem to be doing a better job these last 3 weeks. Our receivers seem to be coming into their own. They seem to be getting better chemistry with Garrett too, which I think's helped. And our passing game has improved tremendously. Our run game has pretty much been there. It hasn't been real consistent, but it's been pretty good all year. And so that's kind of been our staple. But teams were loading the box on us and trying to force us to beat them throwing the football. And up until the last 3 weeks, we hadn't been able to do that. Well, now we can. We can complete some passes across the middle and downfield that we weren't doing in the first few weeks of the season due to the timing issue. And then also Garrett got hurt and missed a couple games too, which didn't help. So, but it all boils down to Garrett Green, man. His ability to run with the football and make plays. And now the improvement he's made in being able to throw the ball, and he's just been able to guide and lead this offense to a much better place. And they still have a lot of room to grow, man. I mean, they still make a lot of mistakes and leave a lot of plays out there every week. So, and I think they're going to continue to get better week in, week out.
Yeah, so I mean, BYU has struggled against mobile quarterbacks. That's something that haven't always done well. We did a little better this year. Well, we did better this year against when we played Arkansas against their quarterback.
Jefferson.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
And that guy's huge.
Yeah.
But also Jalen Daniels, and obviously, I mean, most teams do struggle against him. But so I don't know. I mean, and the other quarterbacks to an extent, those are the two that come to mind. But so yeah, BYU's also been banged up throughout the season in the
Mhm.
secondary. I think some guys were working their way back. I haven't seen this week yet. We're recording on Tuesday, so Halloween, happy Halloween, and so I haven't heard that yet for this week on how we're doing. But surprisingly enough, they've held up pretty well. BYU's defense has kind of mixed results, but to me, I feel like they start out strong and then they kind of fade. But that's more to do with they're just on the field so much because
Mhm.
BYU's offense comes on and has a quick 3-and-out, and the defense is back, and they can only be expected to hold up for so long, especially as BYU still, I think, building up the depth with this new defensive coordinator and as we're entering into the Big 12. So I think that's part of it because I think they've really played pretty well, all things considered. So it should be interesting to see how well they're able to slow down West Virginia. What do you think are West Virginia's biggest weaknesses on offense?
Our biggest weakness is just being consistent. I mean, and that's primarily in a passing game. I mean, our receivers they still get the dropsies at times, and I think they had 3 drops last week against UCF. And like I said, their route running at times is in question. So they still we still need to improve in that area. Even though our passing game is improved, it still has a long way to go to be up to what we're used to at West Virginia when we had Will Greer, Geno Smith, even Skylar Howard, those guys uh, at quarterback, and then we had guys like David Seals, Gary Jennings, Stebbin Bailey, Tavon Austin. We've had some Kevin White. We've had some great receivers a lot over the years, and we're used to We're used to a really good passing game here. We kind of got spoiled with Dana Holgerson, and we just haven't had it yet. And this team is the best we've had so far under Neal Brown, but they still are not what we're accustomed to. And they're not consistent yet. And even consistency in the running game. I mean, even though our running game has been good, it's not as good as it could have been in some games. We're good against bad teams, basically.
Hmm.
And I'd like to see them improve that a little bit going forward and be. They can be elite, and I'd like to see them be elite every week instead of just every 2 or 3 games.
So you're mentioning Neal Brown again. So what do you think his status will end up being as you end the season? Do you think he's still going to be on the hot seat? Do you think you'll have him back next year? What do you think? How do you think that's going to play out?
I mean, I really think a lot of it. I think a lot of it's going to depend on how the last 4 games play out. I mean, we've got 3 games. We will be favored probably in the 3 of our last 4 games. The only one we won't be is against Oklahoma. And if we can't win at least 2 of those, if not all 3 of those games, there's probably going to be some chatter again. And losing to Oklahoma, I don't think it's going to. Losing to Oklahoma and Norman's probably not going to hurt him any, but especially if it's a close game. But if you lose to 2 out of 3 against BYU, Cincy, and Baylor, and no offense, but none of those teams are, they're all bottom half of the Big 12 teams. So as far as the rankings go, so we should beat them, right? In the fan base's mind, and I'm sure in the administration's mind too. So if you can't win at least 2 of those 3, and if not all 3, I don't know what Rim Baker's thinking there, but in my opinion, you got to win at least 2 of the 3 for him to be safe.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Like I said, I think it's really impressive what West Virginia's done this year, and so I love that. So that's got to earn him a lot of credit. But yeah, you got to end strong. I mean, West Virginia, despite having what was on paper at least a pretty tough out of conference schedule, you had Penn State and Pitt, and Pitt's proved not to be so tough
Right.
after all. You had a relatively easy schedule in terms of Big 12. having all 4
Mhm.
of the newcomers and only
Right.
one of the 2 outgoing teams. And so that, that played well to you, as well as, getting Texas Tech, who surprisingly has been
Yeah.
down. And
Right.
so you've benefited from that, but I think, I still think West Virginia is pretty solid all around. So yeah, this game is definitely a tough one. BYU, has not. They've been kind of. I should say. I was going to say inconsistent, but not really. It, they're consistent from each week. They're just inconsistent within the game. So,
Right.
and
Right.
that
I see what you're saying.
inconsistency has been consistent, and
Yeah.
from what we've seen, and so that's been, so it should be interesting. But one thing, BYU plays really well at night in night games. Their
I know.
record is, I should have this now, but I feel like it's, they've only lost a couple out of 20 some games at night over the last few years,
Even on the
but
road.
they're not. Oh, that includes their road night
Okay.
games,
Okay.
but overall on the road they don't do as well. And traditionally, BYU has not done really well coming to the East Coast, which is disappointing because I'm on the East Coast and I've traveled to a lot of those games, and so so it is tough. Maybe being a night game in some ways helps the travel a little bit because if your body clock is off, it, for them,
Mhm.
maybe it's still feeling a little bit more like a 5 o'clock kickoff as opposed to 7. So I don't know if that'll play a factor. But as you mentioned, the away environment. So tell us a little bit about BYU fans, a bit about the West Virginia environment. I've heard some about it. I have a lot of, um, you know, ideas and how I imagine it is. But tell us
Mhm.
what makes the environment there special.
Well, I mean, number one, the fans are passionate. We typically show up. Now we've not been coming out in droves like we have in the past. Uh, you know, the fact we've not been winning as much as we're accustomed to, and then add in the fact that the economy is not the greatest, and ticket prices have skyrocketed. But all that comes into play. But we'll probably have at least 55,000 people there, ballpark, if not more. Um, and they'll be loud. The ones that are there will be loud, especially at night. I don't know. I don't know what you've heard about Morgantown at night, but there's something special about it. I mean, ask the folks at Baylor. They have never been able to win a game in Morgantown, especially at night. And weird, crazy things seem to happen at times at night in Morgantown. So, um, they've had all day to get quote unquote juiced up. They've been tailgating most of them since 8 a.m. They're ready to go. They're ready for football, and the fans will be loud and passionate. Now, as far as the tailgate scene is really really big there too. Uh, so you'll see a lot of that for those who are coming into town. A lot of tailgate. Most of the fans, I think 99% of the fans will be extremely welcoming, will be cordial, um, and you'll enjoy your time there. We all have those handful of fans that might get a little belligerent or whatever, but that's part of the college football environment, right? Um, so
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love it. I'm close enough that I may make it up. Trying to work some things out, so we'll see if I end up making it. But I love to be there in the environment and and experience that. And I'm good being in a way. Like we went to the Tennessee game. I attended that, and BYU actually won, which helped a lot because that stadium was loud. It was ruckus, and then got very quiet very fast. So that's always
mhm.
fun to see. But a little tougher when you're on the losing end, which we'll see how things go this weekend. But yeah, so I do expect it to be as you mentioned, a night game, pretty wild environment. Hopefully, we can return the favor at some point soon. West Virginia makes it out to Provo, and
Mhm.
loud and wild, but in a different way.
Right.
Less
Oh,
booze and more ice
that
cream.
you
So
guys have a great, very passionate fan base as well. And I told, I was messaging with somebody last night. I said, I hope our fans show up to this game because BYU fans will show up. I guarantee
yeah,
it.
yeah, BYU fans do show up well. So hopefully and they will. We'll see if things don't go well though. Then may not hear them quite as well and get drowned out by all the West Virginia fans. But no, it should be a good matchup, and I think a start of we're excited to have West Virginia on our schedule and be in the Big 12. What is West Virginia's? And I should have maybe asked this earlier. What is West Virginia's perception of BYU as a team, coming in here? What's kind of the impression that you guys have?
Now, as far as coming into this game or coming into the conference?
Both.
Well, coming into the conference, we're actually excited about it. Almost every West Virginia fan I've communicated with thinks BYU is a huge addition because of their passionate fan base, their history. They've had some past success, or even recent success in football, and their basketball programs, nothing to sneeze at either. So we're excited about the addition of the conference. As far as coming into this game, I mean, we expect to win the game because of where BYU is at right now. First year in a Power 5 league, we feel like we should win the game, but we should have won the Houston game too, and we didn't. So we know it's not going to be a cakewalk by any stretch, but we feel like we should win the game just because of the state of the two programs and where they are, But we have a lot of respect for BYU, and are glad to have them in the league.
Yeah, it's like I said, BYU is really excited to be in the Big 12, and West Virginia is a storied program. I think BYU is excited to be playing them. And in terms of this game, West Virginia on paper is the better team, and I think all accounts, everything's pointing to West Virginia winning this game. But BYU has been, as you said, opportunistic. I mean, I don't think BYU's been favored in a single game other than their first two out of conference games. And here they are at 5-3. So you still have to, they've been opportunistic. So we'll see if that kind of BYU comes out this week or not. But you can't just overlook them. And that's really any team, especially in the Big 12.
Oh, yeah. This team, you cannot take a week off in this league, man.
No, and that's what makes it fun. Speaking of the league overall, and this is something I'm always curious about. So with the conference mixing up a little bit and new additions, how do you see rivalries playing out for West Virginia? Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Cincy. Do you feel like that has a chance to turn into a good rivalry, or do you already have other rivalries with some of the other Big 12 schools you think will overshadow that?
No, I mean, we really don't have a true rival in the conference right now, unfortunately. I mean, we always hated Texas. Everybody hates Texas, right? So we kind of looked at them as a rival, but and the series with them was even. And I guess it'll end that way because we don't play them this year. But I think it's 6-6 since we've been in the league. So I don't know if Texas looks at it as a rivalry, but we kind of did. It kind of feels like we're kind of starting to form a little bit of a rivalry with TCU due to when we played them, it got really really chippy. There were a lot of injuries in that game. Some late hits some late dirty play by some of their guys that really has our fan base a little upset. So that could turn into one potentially. And then they've tried to force a rivalry with Iowa State. They call it the Riot Bowl. The fans haven't really, I don't think, embraced it. We've had some really good games against Iowa State, but there's just not that vitriol amongst the fans,
Mm-hmm.
And as far as Cincy goes, I mean, it could potentially become a big rivalry, but right now it doesn't feel that way. I think a lot of it's going to depend on how the games go. If you get a lot of close games, it could turn into one potentially. But I don't see, I don't see a huge online presence of Cincinnati fans, to be honest with you. And to me, that's what kind of feeds a rivalry is the online back and forth between fan bases and the hatred there. That's kind of what, to me, proves a rivalry, and of course close games can create that though. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it should be good. I'm excited to see what happens with BYU in the conference. There's TCU has the old rivalry and then now bringing in some of the Pac schools. I think obviously the Utah coming in, but with some of those other schools who BYU's played a little more traditionally. So we'll see what happens there. But nonetheless, we love it. So just a couple quick questions I meant to ask you. All right. So any fans coming into Morgantown, where do they got to go to eat?
Oh gosh, man. I'll be honest with you. I don't live in Morgantown, so I'm not that familiar with that. But I mean that you've got I don't really want to speak on it because it's going to depend on whether you're downtown or whether you're out, close to the stadium. It's going to depend on where you are, really. So I don't know enough about it to speak on it, Trevor. To be honest with you, man.
Okay, we'll just have to stick to looking up on Google, seeing who's got the highest rating. So, and then what do you?
I will say this though: Mario's Fishbowl comes highly recommended.
Okay, all right.
It's downtown for
Is
what
that
it's worth.
seafood or is that just?
Yeah, it is, but they have a little bit of everything.
Okay,
They're
all
more known
right.
for their drinks, actually, which I don't know if BYU fans care about that. So
If they got water, and then we'll be good.
they have water. They're
Okay,
good.
good. So final prediction for the game. Sounds like you're leaning West Virginia
Mhm.
wins this. What do you think the score will look like?
I've kind of run this through my head. The way West Virginia's offense has been playing, I feel like we'll be able to run the football against BYU. I see us probably getting around 200 yards rushing, probably. Maybe 150 yards throwing the ball, maybe 200, somewhere in there. But I see us scoring about 38 points on BYU's defense. We'll probably, may get a turnover or two as well. Keaton Slovis likes to throw the football to the other team occasionally. So hopefully we can take advantage of that, especially when he's pressured. But at the same time, BYU forces a lot of turnovers as well. So that's going to be interesting to see. But nonetheless, I feel like BYU's offense is probably. I feel like BYU will struggle to run the football a little bit. And I think Keaton Slovis will turn over a couple of times. So I'm thinking about 38-30, 38-28, somewhere in that range.
Oh, you're giving BYU's offense some credit. Okay, well, good.
Well, our defense is not, like I said, we've been decimated with injuries, and our defense we've been kind of playing a bend but don't break type defense. So we'll give you guys some yards, but we may not let you in the end zone a lot, but we'll give you some yards.
Well, BYU's done well with red zone scoring. The problem is getting to the red zone, and so when BYU's had success, it's been with short fields. It's been because
Gotcha.
our special teams is good, our punter,
Mm-hmm.
or because of, as you mentioned, the turnovers. And so BYU's had a short field and been able to take advantage. Problem with the game against Texas, we had a couple. We lost the turnover battle, but we had a couple turnovers, but weren't truly able to take advantage of those. So, which makes a lot of difference. So anyway, well, it should be a good matchup nonetheless. We really look forward to it as and like I said, happy to be here in the conference and love these kinds of matchups between these two types of programs. So Couz, really appreciate you coming on. Why don't you plug us? Where can we plug yourself? Where can we find you and all your content?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Couz's Corner. You can see it on the screen. It's COUZ''S Corner. Cover obviously West Virginia. Cover a lot of conference alignment stuff. Try to cover all things Big 12, but obviously as time permits. You can find me on Twitter if you want to communicate with me there, or X, whatever you call it. I'm at Couz206 at COUZ206. I'm on Facebook at Couz's Corner. I'm on Instagram at Couz's Corner, and I'm on TikTok. So. You can find me on and I have a website too if you want to come check out some of the blogs that have been written over there by myself and a few others. Couz'sCorner.com. Oh,
Awesome.
and I have a basketball channel, Hoops from the Hills, that I need to plug. I do with a partner of mine named Mountaineer Paul. So if you want to hear about West Virginia basketball as we get ready to roll into basketball season here in a couple weeks, or in a week actually, you can come check us out there too.
That's soon already.